Hey there, Ddraig back with the OS Factions mod by Shaky Withers. His continual epic project of creating more playable factions and unique rosters. I've covered a fair few of these factions now, and I'll be linked to that playlist on the screen. Today we're going to check out the trolls and the Ugmar tribe. I own a roster which is pretty much entirely made up of trolls. An interesting challenge to say the least. As you well know, trolls are very tough, very powerful, but are dumb as the cubs they use, and equally very low in leadership. So it's time for some epic trolling and check out their roster. First up is the Edgy Lord option, and the only choice in this regard, Chief Ugmar. A very large and a very powerful troll indeed. The stats also back this up, as he's really a scary opposition to anyone, even if you compare him to Thrag, which is the obvious comparison. Ugmar is more defensively minded, with more health and double Thrag's armour, and a lot higher melee defence. So unlike Thrag, he's built for more defence than attack. And he is a nightmare for the opposition to bring down, with that inbuilt toughness and of course his regen. He still brings a mighty 250 AP, with a damage poisoned hit, so should not be taken lightly. Abilities wise, he has Fear and of course Encourage, also has Overwhelming Odour, dropping melee attack around him, making him even tougher to bring down if the enemy keeps missing. Then we have Swamp Breath, adding a nice range attack of 3 uses. Devour them all is a map wide bonus, which is really great ability for a troll. Getting monsters quickly into the combat and increasing their missile resistance by 50% is perfect for this type of army. He also has Stand and Die buff, Fighter for that leadership buffs they own, and lastly we have Ungar's Trinkets. Item dropping upkeep down and adding armour to his already high values. Also adds a bit of resistance and magic. Means he just adds another tier of his toughness to himself. Apart from Ugmar, the other your choice is a Troll Chief, thus giving you limited options. The Troll Chief, however, is a bit more towards dishing out the damage, and definitely nowhere near as tanky as Ugmar. The combat stats are good, and of course being reasonably quick can outrun most foot infantry, or of course run them down. Decent melee attack, but lacking the defence and armour to make them really tough, but as all trolls they have the ability to regenerate. With a very high IP damage output of 350 and a 28 anti-infantry bonus, means putting this character against any infantry they're going to have a very bad day. Buff wise he shares a few of Ugmar, namely Devour them all, Fight or Die and Love Vomit attack. He also has a Pendant of Sonash, boosting melee attack to crazy levels and its speed as well, significantly making it a great Alpha Strike character. Then on to an alternative weapon, a Filth Mace, adding poison as well as a big increase in weapon damage, and also makes the character causes terror as well, meaning it's a vital choice for a chief. When we talk about heroes, there's a few options, but these have been seen before in other rosters, and they are Goblin Big Boss, and 2 caster choices, the Night Goblin Shaman, and obviously the Giant River Troll Hag, adding at least some casting options, if not so, quite limited. These however are exactly the same as you'd find in these rosters, so I won't bother going into them. On to the rest of the roster now, and it gets quite interesting, because you only have one choice of infantry, and that's the easier to ego chaps. At 325 points, the Carrion Goblin Warriors are obviously awful with terrible stats across the board, but we do have a Shield, so you can at least soak up a bit of that damage instead of taking it on your trolls. There's also a lot of them at 200, which can easily slow the enemy down as you try to get your trolls in. They do have a very interesting ability, they're so hungry, which provides quite a sizable tooltip to say the least. Basically they can sacrifice themselves to boost the leadership of the trolls, a vital task for any troll army. Also adds a bit of vigour and can cause terror. Pretty much they get eaten by the trolls. Naturally this is not very good for the goblins and they take severe losses, but if they're about to flee, or maybe running back in with young numbers, you can sacrifice them to keep your leadership high on your more important troll units. It's a really cool ability and something you will use often. Next we have a similar unit. this time for archers, and one of the very few missile attack units. For 400 points, you get a bit of ranged firepower, and it can easily do extra damage against weakly armoured foes. As you may expect, they're even worse in combat than their warrior friends, and they are very short range. But they do have that ability to feed themselves to trolls, as I just went over with the carrion goblin warriors. Next is the only cav option you have, the Squig Hoppers at 550 points. Like the other Squig units you've seen in the Greenskins roster, they are similar and they agree a bit worse, but they do have poison, and a bit of AP at 19, with a bonus to infantry of 10. But they do provide one of the ways to chase down units, and keep your valuable troll units back at the bulk of your army. Being that they're so quick, this is a very handy unit to have in your roster, and I recommend having a couple of them just to provide this vital role in your army. They of course have the same ability as the previous two, and all of these goblin units have Vanguard, meaning you can get them right in the face of the enemy and tie them down before a tidal wave of trolls comes crashing in. Moving on to the monster part of the roster, and of course this is where the bulk of their units lie, with your varied troll options. So let's start off with the basic Southern Trolls at 650 points. They are pretty cheap, and there's 26 of them, which is more than you usually find in the Greenskins version. However, stats are weak, as you may expect, but with those extra numbers, you can really get into the enemy, and with 70 AP and that charge bonus, they will certainly make a huge dent in the front rank. They will need a leadership buff, as they only start at for 40, and they do not fight well on their own. However, they are quick, as most trolls are, and can really close the gap between the vanguard line of the goblins and then bring these in to provide a main punch, as the goblins soak up all the damage instead. Next up we have the Cavern Trolls at 850 points, which are a smaller version of the Southern Trolls, and only have 16 models. They do not hit as hard, but they do have poison with 40 AP and anti-yarge of 15, means they can do some really decent damage against the larger models. Sadly, they are slow to catch any cavalry, but if something else can take a hit, these can get into position and poison the enemy, slowing them down so they can't get away, and you get more units in to bring them down, as damage is not really a problem for the Ugmar tribe. This unit provides an interesting option for your armies, as they're only one of the few trolls that can actually vanguard, and thus we can help catch the goblin line. They are fast as well at 59, meaning they can catch up some units when they're slowed down by poison, such as elite cavalry. They also have a decent damage output, but one of the few units in the roster that has yet AP at only 20, but does have bonus to infantry at 15. However, they do have natural camouflage, allowing you to sneak a unit or two trolls around, and the decent numbers of 20 make them a very interesting option, and gives you a few different choices for your armies. You can either bring them in from the flanks, or like I've mentioned, have them near the vanguard front line to surprise the enemy, and just gives them an extra layer of buffing before your main wave of trolls comes in and helps them out. At this point I can mention they have access to Wither Trolls and the Chaos Armour Trolls, which are exactly the same ones as you see in the Greenskins roster and the Warriors of Chaos Yest. Here though, we have a new unit at 1000 points for Trollbone Throwers, which is a rare thing in this faction, as there one of only two ranged options, and the other one is the previously mentioned Carrion Goblin Archers. So what does this unit bring? Well, the range is not huge, but the damage is considerable, as these missiles do indeed explode, making them a great way of clearing out masses of units. With 16 models in the unit, they can provide a surprising amount of firepower, with yarge damage and that Discouraged debuff drop on their leadership by a yarge 16. They also have an anti-infantry bonus of 10. While they're not very accurate, the massive shots against the large bob will definitely do some good work. If all else fails, they're still trolls and can do a nice bit of damage in melee as well. But they have probably the weakest combat stats of any of the troll units, but they're still indeed very powerful. Next on the roster are the Stone Trolls and the Regiment of Renown, the Swamp Things. Both are the same as the main roster of the Greenskins. This, however, is a new unit, the Ice Trolls. As you can see, they put a lot of damage and have combat stats which are definitely respectable. Quick as well at 54 and having the frostbite on their weapons, dropping speed by 36%. They can keep up some armoured cav if they can be debuffed. We also back that up with a large charge bonus and a lot of damage with the most yet of 81 AP. So they really put the hurt down and they have 120 armour to boot, so not easy to take down either. However, this unit is very susceptible to fire, as they have additional 20% resistance to fire. Along with a regen buff, making fire the bane of this unit, and of course trolls on the whole. So make sure you focus any fire units as soon as possible. A new twist on the unit now, the Chaos Stone Trolls. A fascinating unit. I have some of the best combat stats of any unit on this roster when it comes to bringing the hurt. With armor up to 70, and a melee attack nearly at 50 with a decent speed and a large charge bonus as well. They meant it to get in there and cause, well, chaos. With 58 AP and a 20 bonus to infantry, meaning they can destroy most infantries. They have got the old issues where the defense is really bad, and of course the leadership is pretty bad as well. Speaking of their leadership, it is indeed awful, however they have a stone skin ability, boosting it and adds a lot of resistance to units as well. The downside is as soon as they take more than 50% damage, they use this buff, and then pretty much, unless they're doing really well, immediately run away. So do not get this unit below that 50% mark. So pretty much use them as a chariot, keep them moving in and out of combat, using that natural regen to keep them topped up. And this unit will do a ton of damage and beat most units, all for its 1300 cost. You can also have the Feral Wyvern, a vital unit in the roster, and it provides a lot of speed to help shut down artillery, as this can be your main threat to this army. One of these units in your roster is definitely advisable. Back to the Trolls, and this time we've got Frog's Company, a new regiment of renown. This very flexible unit at 1500 points can provide a lot of different roles in your army. First up, the base stats, which are the best overall combat stats so far, and that strong damage of 70 AP. They are a strong unit, and they have an ability that makes them even more flexible. Each one of these can be used once per battle, so you just choose which ability fits your needs for that particular fight. First up is Defend Yourself, an excellent ability for you to anchor the front line, to soak up with damage and provide a tough unit for the opposition to bring down. Especially useful against hard hitting factions. Next we have Squish the Hit Ones. If you're facing a more infantry based army, press this button and this will terrorise the front lines with huge hits and regular damage. Aim High is obviously the exact opposite, facing a monster large faction or a lot of cavalry, bring this ability, adding some nice damage and bonus to large. Lastly, we've got Get the Fast Ones. Facing a real quick faction, or a faction that's particularly hard to pin down, pop this ability and get more speed and a great freeze to your Vigor buff. As you can see, they have ability for any fight. This is a particularly tough unit to use effectively. As you can see from its stats, it's highly defensive with decent armour and a good G-ship for a troll. With poison, a nice bit of damage if not very AP, with only 31. They're also slow, and as the tooltip says, they are the weakest of the regenerating trolls. And there's also only 12 units in this particular unit. The issue is their ability, Host of Terrifying Afflictions, which is a great def buff, but it affects your troops as well. And one of these is the minus 10 leadership, which is really the one thing you do not want on a butt debuff. A front rank of a few of these units is possible, and as long as you keep your own units around the flanks and try to minimise the effect of this debuff as the enemy will really take strong losses to this unit, and they will take a long time to chew through them. However, they are 1850 points and they're very costly, and you need at least a few in the front line to get the best out of them. An interesting option, but I'm not exactly keen on this particular hex. A regiment of renown now with Shipwreckers at 1900 points. It's a solid defensive option and provides an anti-large threat as well, with 30 bonus to that particular ability, and 70 AP. Meaning it can definitely mess up any large unit, especially if it's a poison attacks. And its debuff ability, Overwhelming Order, dropping melee attack by 6. A useful unit that can also be used to help protect the back line of your troll force. Another really strong unit for Regiments of Renown, with huge armour, and it's backed up with great combat stats as well. For 81 AP means that 1900 points will get you a lot of damage. This unit can go into Berserk, as shown by this tooltip, and having units of berserking trolls is never a great thing, but it's kind of fun to watch them chew up anything in their path as they go rampaging around. If you want something wiped off the battlefield and got a spare 2000 points, then this unit is for you, the Snow Trolls. Only 4 of them, but we do an insane amount of damage for the enemy. With Frostbite as well, and while the combat stats are not the elite level, they are very high for a troll. 225 AP and 35. Even with only 4 models, this unit against the elites will probably take a lot of punishment. However, it hits as hard as it takes, and you can just give it Reckless of Rampage for even more damage. Then this unit turns into a Wrecking Ball, adding more damage across the board, making them tougher and unbreakable, and give them more melee attack as well. They can easily take out nearly any unit in the game, and are especially effective against those large units. They may struggle against a lot of enemies, but they will definitely take it a lot down with them as well. For the Arch units and some Regiments of Renown were Night Trolls. Arguably the best combat stats of anything we look at this roster, and also has had the bonus of being a Vanguard unit. There is no real weakness in this card, and with 100 AP damage, there are some of the hardest hitting trolls on the roster, with the exception of the Snow Trolls. There is a traditional 16 models, so these have numbers compared to that particular unit. They hit like a truck, especially when you take into account they have Frenzy as well. They also have the ability Mocking Gaff. While not a game changer for an ability, it is useful dropping leadership in a fight, and getting them to break before your trolls do, which is always a great idea. And that's the troll roster. I'll be back with a look at the campaign in the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.